We have our good evening. We have our entire complement of commissioners at present. So this meeting was duly posted on the town website. It's been in our noticed in our website. So we're going to start with our administrative matters, and the first is the approval of the minutes of June 25, 2024. Can I please have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call. Richard?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second administrative item is the approval of the field trip reports of July 9, 2024. May I please have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Richard?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes, excuse me, as well. That passes unanimously. The third item is to receive the minutes of the July 9, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes the administrative items. We're moving on to our field trip reports, for which we only have one. And that's a request for extension permit on DEP file 15-25. It's RE-4-1. It's from Stephen Sullivan, who has conducted beach nourishment and bean grass plantings within the coastal beach and wishes to keep the order of conditions active to allow for additional beach nourishment if necessary. It's on land described as map 129, lot 28-23. It's otherwise known as 20 Spinnaker Lane. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request for an extension permit?
Well, the applicant is requesting a 6-month extension through the winter from September 16th, 2024 to March 16th, 2024. And staff does not see what is gained by beach nourishment and plantings from December through March of any year. Staff is recommending a 3-month extension through December 15th to complete the work within the currently permitted footprints. Staff would also suggest that both long-term and continued extensions for beach nourishment projects under a previous filing is wise, since shoreline conditions are changing constantly. What was permitted yesterday may not be prudent today, given the dynamics of the exposed shore. This one I have a real problem with. I want him to complete the work that we permitted, which if he needs another 3 months, I don't see a problem with that. But nobody's going to be planting beach grass in December or January. So I don't see the necessity for going to March. Therefore, staff is again recommending a 3-month extension to December 16th of 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve a request for an extension permit on DEP file 15-2585 for 3 months through and including December 16, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to our public hearings. And in this first public hearing, Commissioner Mallon is going to recuse himself. So we will be hearing this with 5 commissioners. It will require a 4 out of 5 vote. It's a continued public hearing. DEP file 15-2737, NOI 24-19. It's on a notice of intent for ecological restoration from Thomas Hardman to eradicate existing Phragmites and any other invasive species within a bordering vegetated wetland, the 100-foot buffer zone, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR, 10.02, 10.04, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 113, lots 30 and 31, -1, and it's known as 5 and 15 High Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
A second on that, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard? I'm sorry, Richard can't vote. Richard can't.
Recuse.
Megan?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. And I saw Hardman here on behalf of the applicant. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me share screen here briefly, if I can. Hosted to disable my screen sharing, it says.
Looks like you just
It should
assigned
be
it.
available now.
Sorry?
It should be available now. If you try again.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can get the right one. Can everyone see that?
No, nothing has come up.
All right, hold on.
If I remember correctly, wasn't this issue the fact that the maintenance plan was only shown on the plans as relative to one of the two properties, and it should be both?
No, there was also some comments from staff with regard to there was a protocol provided by a certified arborist, and staff was looking for, instead of having I believe it was a meadow mix, a wetland mix on the seed, and a couple of minor notes on the plan, which we have provided and sent to and submitted as well. I had made a full presentation last time. I can certainly make a brief one this time for the benefit of the new commissioners and someone who wasn't here last time, as soon as I can share my screen.
Same thing happened last time with this presenter.
Yeah, this presenter is
Here we go. Starting.
okay. So I'll briefly go through it, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Go ahead. You've got the
okay.
floor.
This is a joint application. Reason for that is that this is mostly an application for removal of invasive species, which are abundant on both properties. If you can see my cursor, this is the Rounds property here to the north, and this is the Mallon property here to the south. Both of these properties are invaded with Phragmites, as well as other numerous invasive species which have been identified. Their proposal is to remove those species so that the understory can renew itself and repropagate, hopefully, back to a wetland, surviving wetland species that isn't choked out by invasive species. The application also requests vista pruning on portions of the Mallon property and to continue on to the Rounds property. This area here that's hatched already has a permit. That's the Mallon property for vista pruning in this area here, on this whole area, actually, as I'm showing you. This area here is all part of what currently has vista pruning. It now wants to include the removal of the invasive species here and extend the vista pruning to the property line, which it wasn't done before. The vista pruning has been done for probably the last number of years and has been fairly successful and done a pretty good job out there based on my observation. And I think I don't want to speak for staff, but I know that he's been out there as well. So those revisions were made in the notes here up above to address exactly what's being done on what properties. They are hatched accordingly and identified in the legend here. Again, it's for the most part removal of invasive species. A protocol has been provided to the commission as part of the application by a certified arborist as to how we're going to go about doing that, and who will identify those species that are invasive and can be removed. I'd be happy to entertain questions, Mr. Chairman, if the commissioners so wish.
Thank you, Tom. Mark, I assume you've had an opportunity, I know you've had an opportunity to review the amended submittals and plan. Are there any additional comments that staff wants to have or address these particular?
No, at this point, I think that the applicant and their representatives have responded to all of staff's concerns. This is a fragile area. It is a wetland with invasives, and so we have to be somewhat delicate in how we handle this kind of thing. It is an ecological restoration. There's no doubt about that. But some prudence needs to be adhered to in doing this work. Having said that, staff is prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions according to the revised plan entitled Plan to Accompany the Notice of Intent dated July 3rd, 2024, and the red line narrative, which explains the methodology and the process, dated July 1st, 2024, with the following modified conditions, if I can read them, Mr. Chairman. Special condition 41, all vista pruning shall be limited to a minimum height of greater than or equal to 8 feet. Special condition number 2, debris cutting shall be hand removed from the wetland resource areas and the non-lawn buffer zone to the lawn area, then further removed from the lawn area with mechanical equipment. Special condition 43, invasives that are removed shall be replaced with a specified wetland seed mix, inclusive of wetland fern species and sowed at the recommended seed density. Special condition 44, where project site areas are designated for resource replacement, replication, or restoration, whether by approved project impact, a violation, or as a result of an enforcement order, all work shall conform with the following protocols. A, the areas shall be secured with properly staked and entrenched tail bells, wall wattles, and silt fence, and regraded to natural contours prior to the plantings. All unstable bare ground shall be seeded with standard wetland or erosion control seed mix as per the conditions at the planted recommended density. B, aside from the approved restoration work authorized herein, no additional activities of any type shall occur within the wetland jurisdiction under this order unless authorized in the future by the commission or an agent. C, all vista pruning, removal of invasives, and restoration planting work shall be completed by the 3-year sunset of this order. Upon completion, a conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of said work can be made prior to the close of the growing season. D, monitoring shall be done and reported to the conservation staff following each growing season until 75% wetland vegetative cover has been achieved or throughout the complete term of this order. E, all restoration seeding that failed to survive through the life of this order for any reason shall be replaced by the applicant or their successors or assigns, and then we will have condition 42 renumbered to condition 45, which is again a reiteration of the posting of the DEP and the DEP file number. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question either of Mr. Hardman or Mr. Garrett?
I don't, those are all reasonable and understandable, and we have no issue with any of those conditions.
Thank you, Tom. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see it.
Excuse, forget it. I did say it.
No, I don't see anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard. So at this juncture, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Can I have a second on that, please? We have a motion. on the
Second.
floor. We have a
Sorry.
second. That's okay. So
On
we have a
mute.
seconded motion, roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. At this point, I will entertain a motion on this matter, which is DEP file 15-2737 for the issuance of a standard order of conditions according to the plan that was submitted on July 3rd, 2024, and the narrative dated July 1, 2024, which was also submitted with the conditions outlined by Mr. Garrett. Conditions 41, 42, 43, 44, A, B, C, D, E, and condition 45.
So moved. Second.
The second on the motion, it's a roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom.
We're going now to the second public hearing, which is a continued public hearing. Oh, by the way, there it goes. Okay. Which is a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2740, NOI 24-26. It's on the notice of intent from David Vermette to construct a single-family dwelling with associated grading and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and a coastal bank, and within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The appropriate and applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.30, and 10.55. It's also Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 23, lot 48-1. It's on Horseneck Road. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved. Second.
The seconded motion will roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
The chairman, a point of order. I believe Jane, which is listed as Jane's iPad, had a raised hand at the closure of the last hearing. I'm not, she appears muted right now. I'm not sure what whose attention she was trying to get, but I did want to acknowledge that before we moved on.
Well, I don't
I don't
see
know what it was
that.
about, so I'm just identifying that the hand was raised.
Yeah. Well, that
Is
person.
Jane with her
Here,
ears?
I apologize, but I didn't see it. And I didn't see anybody waving their hand either. So I'm not sure why.
I just wanted to raise the issue.
Okay. So at this particular juncture, we have the applicant through, it looks like Mr. Giosa will be now presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Steve Giosa with SciTech Engineering representing the applicant this evening. And if I may share my screen,
Please do.
we can review some of the changes that have been made since the last hearing. So this is a proposal for a single-family dwelling to be located on a 5-acre parcel located on the east side of Horseneck Road. We have Horseneck Road here on the west, the Slocum's River here on the east, and the area of proposed development confined to the essentially the south west corner of the subject property. We did present this at the last meeting, had some input from the commission, staff, as well as DEP and Natural Heritage. So we made a few changes to the plan, added some additional information. And DPW as well, I'm sorry. We'll start with DPW's comments. They were primarily technical, relating to utility connections and some grading here at the entry point. They asked us to flatten the grades here at the entry to make a more gradual transition onto the public way, which we have done. They requested that we add the water main size on the opposite side of the street that we are proposing to tie our water service into. So we have identified that as an 8-inch cement line ductile iron pipe. They asked for some construction details primarily relating to the water service connection. And then they asked that we identify a construction entrance, which we have on the plan here. There'll be a crushed stone construction entrance proposed to control materials coming out onto the public way during the construction process. So those are the changes that reflect the DPW's comments at this point. We also had some input from Natural Heritage. If you recall, at the last meeting, we identified a limit of work that went around the project. And we proposed that limit of work to follow the grading limits as proposed for this project. But we intentionally did not include the reserve area. The reserve area, as you know, is a requirement to be depicted on a plan when you're proposing a septic system construction. And its intent is to show that if in the event of a failure of the primary septic system, which is located here, there is a place to situate a replacement system. Now, the reason we didn't show it initially is what we have found in 90 out of 100 cases when we do get into a repair on a septic, the original system is excavated, materials removed, and we replace the system in exactly the same spot. The reason we do that, we're not redoing a lot of extra piping, it's less disruptive to the area, and the reserve area is a mandate of DEP and Title V, so we do have to show it, but I would anticipate if there were ever a need to replace this system, we would still never get into this portion of the land. But Natural Heritage asked us to include that and then to make sure that our limit of work was still below half an acre or 0.48 acres on this site, which we have done. We did that by pulling the grading in on this edge of the project. We pulled the grading in along the driveway, and we did pull the grading in on the far east end of the work so that when all is said and done, by including this area for the reserve area, we have in fact maintained the 0.48 acre cap on alteration on this lot that Natural Heritage has mandated that we follow. So that's, I believe, in keeping with what they had in mind. We've also agreed, and I think I outlined this at the last meeting, but I'll just restate it, that Natural Heritage is going to require us to set permanent markers along the limit of work or maximum limit of work. And we're going to go around the reserve area because that's the maximum limit of work. But the actual clearing for the project will really be capped here. This will never be cleared. But we're gonna put permanent markers in along the perimeter, and we've agreed to a recording of a plan with a meets and bounds description that would follow the limit of work. That document would be turned into an exhibit. It will be recorded with the final natural heritage decision on the project, and it'll be recorded within the title of this land with the Registry of Deeds. Additionally, Natural Heritage has requested, and we have agreed, to have us set these permanent markers prior to any land clearing operation. So all of the permanent markers will be set prior to any construction. And we would have to notify Natural Heritage, they'll verify those locations, and those markers would have to be preserved and maintained, so that if someone wants to check and make sure that the current landowner or any future landowner is aware and do not go beyond those markers. And the fact that we'll have a document recorded with the title of the land will ensure that there is an exact awareness by any future landowner on these limitations on the property. So the applicant has agreed to all of those requests from Natural Heritage as it pertains to this site. At the last meeting, Mr. Garrett asked us to provide a little more documentation on how we came up with the riverfront area. The riverfront, as you know, is established in a number of different ways, depending on what type of riverfront and where you are. In this case, it is a tidal area, so we are going by the mean high water line, which has been identified by a topographic survey. So we have field survey, and we did do some LiDAR verification of the limits of the mean high watermark, if you will, for this location. And that did adjust the 200-foot riverfront area up gradient just a little bit. But as you can see, this is the limit of the riverfront area as we've defined it. We're still another 70 feet or so to the buffer zone, and probably another 75 feet or so to the limit of work. So we think that, again, we're not proposing any activity within that riverfront area, and we believe we're in keeping with the regulations to try and minimize alteration of a riverfront area, even though there is an allowance to do some minor modifications in riverfront areas in Massachusetts. And then finally, DEP in their issuance of the file number asked us to identify the salt marsh. And you'll see when you go out to the site, there's like a ridge right in here on the property. On this side, it's a traditional bordering vegetated wetland. On this side, it becomes a salt marsh. So we have, in fact, labeled that as the salt marsh on this edge of the property. So this, getting back to the initial presentation, this is a single-family home, a buffer zone project. We've maximized separation to the wetland resource areas. You can see the wetlands identified with the green shaded lines. No alteration of a resource area other than the floodplain, which we are in the floodplain here in the very front of the property, but even the rest of the site is outside of the 100-year flood zone. So with that, those are the changes that have been made. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Mark, staff's comments on this application, please.
Well, I did review Steve's recalc of the 200-foot riverfront area, and I concur with it. I think it was more appropriately done this time. Everyone should remember that the existing wetland lines that are depicted on this plan, the vegetated wetlands, I should say, are in fact lines of record from a previous request for determination of applicability, in which a determination was issued. And these lines are still valid into August, maybe early September. I don't remember. We're right up against it, but they are still legally valid lines of record. So this was approved previously. It was extended due to the COVID tolling period. Having said that, just kind of reiterating, we asked Steve to justify the coastal bank delineation, which he did last time. I think he did an adequate job with that. The house itself hasn't changed in this newer version, in this revised plan. However, the extent of work has changed, the regrading has changed. So in fact, it is a somewhat lesser project from the standpoint of land alteration, on the ground alteration specifically. Since our last meeting, we did receive a letter from Natural Heritage dated June 26th. And that letter outlined two things. It first outlined their opinion relative to mass wetlands protection, resource areas, and state listed species. And then they went on to speak to a second issue, which is not technically our jurisdiction, that being of the Mass Endangered Species Act, or more commonly known MISA. In that letter, and I'm going to read the paragraph, Natural Heritage states under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, WPA, which in this case would be somewhat concurrent with our Dartmouth Wetland Protection Bylaw, quote, based on a review of the information that was provided and the information that is currently in our database, the division has determined that this project as currently proposed will not adversely affect actual resource area habitat of state protected rare wildlife species. Therefore, it is our opinion that this project meets the state listed species performance standard for the issuance of an order of conditions. And I know that wildlife is a concern of several of the commenters, of staff itself. And we know that there are habitats out there. We know that there have been observations, but these are the people who have that direct jurisdiction. Steve clearly indicated that there was some further work that was indicated in that letter under MISA. It is my understanding that Steve has addressed the comments as he understands them. I think there's been, and Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there have been some informal discussions, but as of yet, we have not received any additional correspondence relative to compliance with MISA, which is again out of our jurisdiction, certainly related to our jurisdiction, but certainly out of our jurisdiction. So having said all that, and I clearly understand the public concerns about the project. Personal opinions aside, this is a permittable project under the Wetland Protection Act and the Dartmouth Wetland Protection Bylaw, and it is staff's recommendation that a standard order of conditions according to the subsurface sewage disposal system plan dated June 26, 2024, which is the plan you're looking at, be issued with an initial acknowledgement in those conditions, and we do have a condition that speaks to compliance with other jurisdictions, with an additional acknowledgement of the pending MISA determination. So that is staff's recommendation at this point.
So with our standard conditions, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
No, there is been no added condition. I'm only modifying to incorporate the acknowledgement of MISA in our standard conditions for compliance with other jurisdictions.
Understood. Does any commissioner have any questions, either of Mr. Giosa or of Mr. Garrett? I'm looking really carefully now and I don't see any. So, does anyone in the audience want to be heard on this application? There's a waving of a hand of Mr. Brenner. I'll recognize you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to add one point to the one I made in your last session, which is inconsistent with the staff. I won't repeat it. It would be tedious. I've made the record. The point I want to make now concerns the riverfront termination. The applicant's engineer, Mr. Giosa, indicated he'd made that determination based on the mean high water line. That's incorrect. The statute and the regulation define the CMR 1058 sub 2 defines the riverfront as, quote, the area of land between a river's mean annual high water line and a parallel line measured horizontally. Our regulations repeatedly use the phrase mean high water when that's what they mean. That's not what they said this time. This regulation says the mean annual high water line. That means on average every year, how high do the highest tides go? And the highest tides in this case go all the way across the marsh. I've submitted photographic evidence to the staff in support of that proposition. I therefore think, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, that the basis on which the staff has recommended this approval of a set of conditions is based on an incorrect determination of the riverfront that cannot be squared with the plain language of the regulation. I consequently urge the commission to leave the matter open until three things have happened: that it has made a new determination of the riverfront's location based on engineering evidence in accordance with the actual language of 1058 sub 2, that the applicant has submitted another revised proposal based on that determination, and that there's been reasonable provision for public comment. With respect, sir, I just don't think that you can issue, I would say can't issue, that the recommendation you have before you from staff is vulnerable legally. I don't think it's correct. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Chairman, can I respond to that?
Well, I'll let you respond. I just want to see if there are any other comments. Are there any other comments from anyone in the audience? I see Mr. Clear is waving his hands. You can be
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to pay respect to your comments actually in our previous meeting that the commission treats all applicants equally, regardless of the size of the company, who they are, or anything else. This is totally fitting and appropriate, and I agree with that. However, all applications are not the same, and times have changed. What may well have been suitable in the past, heck, once upon a time we filled the river in, is not suitable today or even on this case. Whereas at one point we may have allowed 50% of the buffer zone to be filled in, on this particular lot, which is directly on the Slocum River, which is a potential nitrogen sensitive area subject to the potential new Title V regulations, which could impact the town very significantly, should not be allowed to go that far. Equally, to Mr. Brenner's point, the mean high tide comes all the way up to the top of the slope. I live right next door. I look out my study window. Even this morning, there was water over those wetlands. So that the traditional or the conventional edge of the river out there is not the mean high tide point. Therefore, I urge the board to consider its obligation to our community to control development on sensitive lots like this, and to cut this project back significantly, pending the conditions that Mr. Brenner brought forward, and that we refer any decisions on this until particularly that waterfront issue has been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clear. Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to be heard? I don't see any. So at this juncture, I'll get to you, Mark, in a moment, but Steve, I'm going to throw it back to you. There's been a question raised by Mr. Brenner as to whether the determination was correct in accordance with the regulations. Mr. Brenner quoted the regulations in 1058-2 as requiring the mean annual. And
And I would disagree with Mr. Brenner. You can look at a tidal area or an area where tide does fluctuate. And you're gonna get a moon tide. You're gonna see water going up. You're gonna see times when there is more water on that property. It's evidenced by the fact that there's floodplain here. The floodplain comes all the way up to the street. There's no disputing that. That's not how DEP has routinely interpreted these tidal areas in terms of making the determination as to where the edge of the beginning of the riverbank is and where the 200-foot riverfront zone extends. So with all due respect to Mr. Brenner, he is not interpreting the regulations correctly. And this has been determined this way in multiple communities at different stages when we have this situation. The riverfront typically applies to inland rivers where you have a flowing stream, and then there may be occasions where that water overtops the bank. And so now the question is, what is the mean or average, not the maximum, not the minimum, but the mean water level in that river during a typical 1-year period? So I believe his interpretation is completely incorrect, and it has been, held up by DEP in numerous communities. So again, I would disagree with him, and I don't think it's anything I can add any more to the discussion on. I know he's not going to agree with that interpretation. That's obviously his opinion. But again, I've done numerous cases like this in other communities, and this interpretation is a reasonable interpretation of where that, and I can defer to Mark on any further clarification of that as well.
Yeah, I'll now ask Mark, you wanted to say something, so I'll let you say it now.
Yeah, as a practitioner for nearly 40 years, mean annual high water is a term in the definitions, as Mr. Brennan said, and cited in the regulations, which really responds to how one calculates a bank full situation in an inland condition. It is, in fact, synonymous with mean high water when you're dealing with semi-diurnal tides, 365 days a year. Mean annual high water, mean high tide are generally the same location. In tidal situations, it is a little harder to determine. It is a case-by-case basis, river by river. I looked at how Mr. Giosa calculated this, and I think that his riverfront is reasonable and in accordance with the regulations. And I realize Mr. Brenner disagrees with that, and that he certainly, can have his opinion. But the way I've dealt with it for years as a consultant and now as a regulator is pretty much the way Mr. Giosa calculated it for tidal conditions.
Is there a definition of that phrase anywhere in the regulations, Mark?
Not really.
May I say, Mr. Chairman, I'm not interpreting the regulation. I'm reading it. And the response to my argument is that it's reasonable to ignore that word. But as you would know, your counsel, we're not entitled to do that. And Mr. Giosa also mentioned that, we have floods, but we're not talking about exceptional floods here. We're talking about a mean annual high water line, not what might happen in an unusual hurricane, for example, but what I've observed happens every year, particularly in the months of December, when we have an enormous average high water.
Okay, thank you for that. So you have nothing to add on that, Steve?
No, I think Mr. Brenner is ignoring the word mean, that's all, and I'll leave it at that.
Is there anyone else that wants to be heard? I'll make sure I have everybody.
Mr. Chair, real quick, Mark, quick question. In the first regulation that Mr. Brenner cited, under subsection C, in tidal rivers, the mean annual high water line is coincident with the mean high water line determined under 310 CMR 10.23 in tidal rivers. So I don't know, Mr. Brenner is citing the wrong mass regulation, but it seems to point to 310 CMR 10.23.
Kyle, I believe what you just cited is exactly what Steve and I are saying.
Correct.
That's how we see it. And I would also submit, I just, while this discussion is going on, and I believe, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it was my understanding that somebody observed a high tide today covering the salt marsh. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I observed
Okay,
it
well-
myself out the window.
Okay, well, today was an astronomically high tide. So today was not an average tide. It was at the high end. It would be a high tide. So using a singular observation, while valid for the moment, in terms of the calculation, it becomes part of the statistical analysis, and I would leave it at that.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone else have any comments? Questions? I don't see any. I think I've been looking carefully. So at this juncture, it's appropriate to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, you've heard the testimony of the applicant and their engineers, the commentary from staff, comments from citizens who are abutting or near the project, and the recommendation of staff. So at this juncture, what would your pleasure be?
Motion for a standard order of conditions along with the additional comments provided by Mark.
That would be the MISA determination.
Yes.
Okay. So a motion on the floor for the issuance of a standard order of conditions with an additional acknowledgement of the pending MISA determination. And that would be on the plan that was submitted on June 26, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We go to a roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you.
We now go to our number 3 public hearing, which is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2743, NOI 24-29. It's on the notice of intent from Cynthia Kudo for permission to install within a roof drain filtration system for the recently constructed garage and breezeway bordering land subject to flooding and within the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank bordering on Lake Oak. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, and 10.57. It's also Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 179, lot 9. It's at 740 Reed Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant. I see it's Steve again.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Steve Giosa with SciTech Engineering. I will share my screen again. We can get the correct drawing. Here we go. This is a piece of property located on Reed Road. We are on the west side of Reed Road with Lake Nokichoke here on the west side of the property, Reed Road bordering on the east. The town actually has a municipal pumping station here right on the corner of the property in an easement area. And the property has a building that was constructed. Well, there's an existing house here. A couple of years ago, the prior owner received permission from the commission to build this brown shaded addition to the house. It's a breezeway and garage that was approved for construction, along with some modifications to the driveway. And that work was completed. However, the prior owner never installed the roof drain system for this project. And there was a roof drain system proposed here on the south side of the building, never installed. The property then was transferred to my client, Cynthia Kudo. And when she went to look for a certificate of compliance, we came to the determination that the prior owner never installed the roof drains and connecting them to a subsurface recharge system. So at the last meeting, I believe, the commission voted to close out that prior permit with the condition that we follow through on completing the construction, but the original permit had expired, so we couldn't do the work under the original permit, so we have filed a new notice of intent. We've actually bolstered the size of the system. The original system design was set for capturing 1 inch of runoff off the roof area. We've actually increased the sizing to be a 2-inch recharge system. We did complete a test pit to determine soil conditions that was witnessed by the Department of Public Works, which is located here. And you'll note that we've rotated the recharge system to the rear or to the west side of the garage. The reason for that is there's a wood timber retaining wall that runs along this edge. Our concern was undermining the retaining wall and then also having water transmitting out of the recharge system through the wall and kind of short-circuiting the system. So we thought, short of putting in a brand new retaining wall, which would be much more disruptive, we felt that relocating the recharge system here to the west side, tying in downspouts from the new roof areas into this system. The system would consist of 3 chambers with some crushed stone. We thought that would be less disruptive and also accomplish a little bit better recharge capacity for this particular piece of property. So this is an attempt to resolve a critical part of the original construction that never got completed by the prior owner. And the existing owner is already funded this, has a contractor lined up, subject to obtaining a permit. So this is something she wants to get behind her. We have recorded the certificate of compliance on the original construction, and we have provided a copy to the town that it has been recorded. And we'd be looking to move forward with this particular project at this time.
Thank you very much, Steve. Mark? Staff's comments.
I think Steve, gave a pretty good summary here. There was an order of conditions issued for the construction of the breezeway in the garage and a infiltration system. The garage and the breezeway were constructed. The infiltration system was not. That order of conditions expired, so nobody could mandate that they do the work. It would be unpermitted. So what we did was we issued a certificate of compliance 2 weeks ago with the condition that they come back with a notice of intent and receive an order of conditions, which they're doing tonight. And hopefully they'll get their order of conditions for completing the work that was previously approved and never done. I know Cynthia, I've chatted with her, the applicant. She wants to get this completed and, buttoned up in accordance with what needs to be done. She wants to clean up the title issues by completing this work satisfactorily to the commission's desires. Having said all that, staff is recommending a standard order of conditions as per the plan dated May 13th, 2024.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question either of Mr. Giosa or Mr. Garrett? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? Again, I don't see any. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes, forgive me.
that's okay. And my vote is a yes as well, so that motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, we have a closed public hearing. I'll entertain now a motion on this matter, which is DEP file 15-2743 to issue a standard order of conditions according to the plan that was submitted on May 13, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night, Steve.
Good night.
We are moving on now to our fourth public hearing. And this is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2735, NOI 24-22. It's a notice of intent from Sasha Rodriguez for the construction of a single-family home with paved driveway and associated grading in 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The appropriate and applicable code provisions are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, as well as section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 34 lot 2-2. It's on Bakerville Vineyard lot 5. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, and we'll do a roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, I believe this is one you received a request to continue.
Well, I did, but a little lead up to that. This is the public hearing. The notice of intent was filed for a project on a single family lot, which is yet to be released by planning board. We were supposed to hear this last time on July 9th. The lot had not been released. We were informed that it would be on the planning board agenda last evening. Apparently something occurred and it did not make the agenda last evening. So the lot remains unreleased, and to be consistent with what we've been doing in terms of we can't issue a permit on a lot that is not yet developable. We had we need to continue it. And I suggested that to the applicant, the engineer, Christian Farland, and he agreed, and I forwarded that response to my email to you folks. So that's the case. I will state, we did conduct a site visit anticipating we were going to have this public hearing heard this evening. We conducted that last week. And I mean, the project certainly is permittable. We have some minor issues with it, but certainly worthy of discussion and certainly resolvable. But at this point, we need to continue it.
Well, what's the next planning board hearing that they're supposedly going to have this heard at?
Say again?
What date is the next planning board hearing this is supposedly going to get?
I do not know that, Mike.
Because I'm a little concerned because our next meeting is August 13th, and if the planning board doesn't meet before then, we're going to continue this again.
Well, to that end, I listed the meetings moving forward. We have a meeting on August 13th. We have a meeting on August 27th. We have a meeting on September 10th, and we have a meeting on September 24th. So we can go to the next meeting, or we can jump and go to.
I think we should go to Mark, because I don't know when the planning board's meeting is. And, you know, if I just don't want to continue it and continue it and continue it.
Right.
Wait, you know, so I just assume go a full month rather than 2 weeks.
We can do that.
And obviously, if that's a problem for them in terms of they're not making that meeting either, just let us know soon so we could.
Yeah, I'm at the whim of the planning board, you know, hearing this, they haven't yet heard it, so.
No, I understand, but you mentioned that they didn't get on the agenda, so we would know well before the night.
I found that out yesterday. That they had not made the agenda. It sounded to me like they were going to be on it. I did not check the planning board agenda. Just for the record, the town planner has resigned. Her last day was last Friday. So they're functioning with a junior staffer, you know, competent, but certainly trying to get his sea legs. So he came down and informed me of that yesterday. So kudos to Ross on that.
Oh, I think Ross is a very fine person, and I think he'll be a terrific interim, and if he gets the position, he'll be a terrific town planner. I certainly have no qualms about that. I just, you know, and obviously it sounds like the applicant didn't find out until yesterday either. So they were of the assumption they were going to be on last evening's meeting. So I understand that too. It's not a fault of anybody, but I would suggest that maybe applicant could check in to make sure they are on the agenda and let us know if for some quirk it doesn't make it again. So I'm very, very aware of the fact that things happen and sometimes well beyond the applicant's control. So I'm not posting this as a problem with the applicant. I'm just saying, I know that we're waiting for planning board. When planning board does its thing, then we can do our thing. But we've been waiting now for a bit.
Yeah.
On this. So. Anyway, so what was that date again for the last meeting in August, Mark?
August 27th.
Okay.
Real
so
quick,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, real quick, the next, according to the last agenda, the next planning board meeting schedule is for August 5th.
It is August 5th. All right, well, in that case, a lot of hot air by me wasted, because if that's the case, that'll allow the applicant to come to our next scheduled meeting.
That's on their last agenda, so the July 22nd agenda.
All right, so I'm gonna alter what I was about to say. You caught me just before I said it, which I will entertain at this point a motion to continue this matter until the August 13, 2024 meeting at 7 p.m. Which is,
So moved.
thank you.
Second,
The seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Kyle, thank you for looking that up. I appreciate it. Good
No
catch.
problem.
We're now going to go to the fifth public hearing. It's a public hearing, DEP file 15-2741. That's NOI 24-28. It's on the notice of intent from Sarah O'Leary to repair a septic system within the 100-foot buffer zone to a coastal bank and within land subject to coastal flowage. The appropriate regulations here are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and 10.30, as well as Town of Dartmouth bylaws section 2. The land is described as map 14 lot 10. It's otherwise known as 19-G Smith's Way. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second,
With a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
Kyle,
yes.
Liz,
yes,
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. And I see Mr. Haru here, so without further ado, Alan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Alan Haru, professional civil engineer. This evening, I'm representing Sarah O'Leary. She owns a single-family house at 19G Smith's Way, Plat 14, Lot 10. We propose a septic system repair project. The record plan is entitled Subsurface Sewage Disposal System. It's dated June 6th, 2024, and revised June 24th, 2024. So if I could share my screen.
Please do.
Let me enlarge this a little bit.
Yeah, a lot, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right.
I can read it now. Alan.
Yeah. Okay, just let me move this bar here. Okay. So the house here, this 3-bedroom house, is located atop a 10-foot high coastal bank along the Slocums River. So there's a 10-foot high coastal bank here on the south side of the house. And there's a strip of salt marsh along the base of the coastal bank. And to the north, further away, there's an additional salt marsh. It's 124 feet away from the proposed septic system leaching field here at the high point of the lot. And excavation work is proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank and the salt marsh. The entire lot is mapped flood zone. However, the proposed subsurface sewage disposal system is located on the high side of the property, and it's above the base flood elevation. So the base flood elevation for the flood zone is elevation 12, and you can see all the contours here are 16 to 19. So we're proposing a septic tank for primary treatment, a pump chamber, lifting the effluent to a soil absorption system at the high point on the lot. The septic system is designed in accordance with Title V State Environmental Code and has been approved by the Board of Health. We show erosion control barriers on the plan, both here to the north. Construction access will be off the driveway and across the yard here. So we have an erosion control barrier at the edge of the driveway, and then we have an erosion control barrier here on the south side of the system at the top of the coastal bank. So we have on the plan our standard note that the commission likes to see regarding the erosion control shown on the plan. The DEP file number is SE15-2741, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commission.
Thank you, Alan. Mark, staff's had an opportunity to review. I'd be interested in staff's comments.
Yeah, I mean, we believe that this, obviously they need a septic repair. It's required. And this is probably as good a place to put it as any place on the site. It is as far away from our jurisdictional resources as possible, while also being as far away from the water table as possible. So we agree that it is appropriately sited, given the size and configuration of the site and the wetlands that are out there. And having said that, staff is recommending a standard order of conditions per the revised plan dated 6/24/24.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question of either Alan or Mark? Don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to be heard on this application? I don't, well, I see a hand is raised on Andy's iPhone. But I don't, nope, now it's gone. Okay, so I'll entertain at this juncture a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion for a standard order of conditions on the plan dated June 6, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
With a seconded motion, again, roll call vote.
Can I make a correction? It's a revised plan, June 24th, 2024.
Okay, yes, thank you. June 24, 2024. Again, do it again. So you want to vote on that? Do a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you,
everyone.
Okay, we're going to move now to our sixth public hearing. And it's
Mr. Chairman, apologies to interrupt. I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing.
Very good. So the record will reflect that on the sixth public hearing, Commissioner Watson has recused himself. This is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2742. It's NOI 24-30. It's on the notice of intent from Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust, Linda Vanderveer, for the construction of a 10-foot by 16-foot viewing platform with associated 100 linear foot elevated walkway over the 200-foot riverfront area to Dyke Creek, a bordering vegetated wetland, a salt marsh, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. This is land described as map 29, lot 46-2. It's on Dyke Creek Reserve, which is on Bakerville Road. I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I see Mr. Haru is still here. Are you here on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, for this public hearing, I'm representing the Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust. They own an approximately 36-acre parcel of land adjacent to the Dyke Creek estuary, known as the Dyke Creek Reserve. It's map 29, lot 46-2. There are several trails throughout this property with a trailhead parking area on Bakersville Road. One trail spur ends at the salt marsh on the easterly side of the property along the Dyke Creek, where there is currently a split rail fence enclosure. We propose a 10-foot by 16-foot elevated viewing platform with 2 benches on it at the end of this trail spur overlooking the estuary. The record plan is entitled Site Plan Showing Proposed Viewing Platform, Dyke Creek Reserve, dated May 15th, 2024. So I'll share my screen. Let me see if I can enlarge just a little bit, maybe a little bit more. Okay. The limit of bordering vegetated wetland here on the plan is the limit of the bordering vegetated wetland, and this is the limit of the salt marsh here. Right here is where the existing split rail fence enclosure is located, and there is an existing trail spur that comes down to the edge of the salt marsh where the salt marsh opens up and overlooks the Dyke Creek. So the Dyke Creek channel is about 90 feet away from the proposed viewing platform. The limit of bordering vegetated wetland and salt marsh was delineated by Michael O'Reilly, wetland consultant. The site is within land subject to coastal storm flowage. and the proposed platform is approximately 90 feet setback from the Dyke Creek. We propose a 4-foot wide, 100-foot long elevated walkway along the existing trail spur, across the bordering vegetated wetland, and across the salt marsh and riverfront area to the viewing platform. The elevated walkway and viewing platform will be installed on posts so as to permit the reasonably unobstructed flowage of water and adequate light to maintain vegetation in accordance with 310 CMR 1053, subparagraph 3, subparagraph J. It's a limited project allowed under the bordering vegetated wetlands portion of the regulations. And it's also in accordance with 310 CMR 1032, subparagraph D for salt marsh. We have provided the commission a letter of support dated June 12, 2024 from Jack Sidar, Land Stewardship Director, Buzzards Bay Coalition, which holds a conservation restriction on this land. The MDEP file number is SE 15-2742, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you, Alan. Mark, staff's recommendations would be welcome.
Yeah, this is an area that is already utilized. There's existing trail extending out to the fenced-in area that Alan indicated, which is being proposed now as a raised platform. So it is an active trail area. This elevated platform would probably serve to minimize direct impacts to wetlands and salt marsh. One thing Alan failed to mention, which I think is pretty important here, the siting of the raised platform and the benches, they are immediately landward of the edge of the Spartina salt marsh. The portion of the salt marsh that will be affected is an extreme high marsh, vegetated largely with high tide bush, either frutescens, so that there is no direct impact to the Spartina marsh itself. It is only that upland that high marsh fringe, and the elevation should certainly protect the vegetation and allow it to gain sunlight. Currently, there's a trail through that high tide bush so that there's really no high tide bush growing because of the well-worn path. So I think that all in all, this is an improvement to get folks who are on an existing path system. I believe this is the red trail, if I recall from my walk last week. And this is just a spur that heads out to give adequate viewing of the Dyke Creek salt marsh. Having said that, staff is prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions as per the plan dated May 15th, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions of either Alan or Mark? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? Once again, I don't see anybody. So at this point, it would be appropriate to have a motion for the closure of the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. That passes unanimously. At this point, I'll entertain a motion as a motion to issue a standard order of conditions according to the plan submitted dated May 15, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of your summertime.
I hope to. Thank you.
Okay. Adios.
Adios. Our seventh public hearing is on DEP file 15-2745. That's NOI 24-32. It's on the notice of intent from Mark and Lori O'Neill to construct a 12-foot by 14-foot addition and a deck extension with stairs within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 24, lot 17, otherwise known as 47 Rockadundy Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicants?
Yes, Len Potter from Westport Environmental Design.
You've got the floor, Mr. Potter.
Okay, I'm Len Potter, Westport Environmental, representing Mark and Laurie O'Neill at 475 Rockadundy Road. There is an existing home on the property, and this NOI is to allow them to build a 12 by, we'll call it 14-foot addition to that home, replacing a deck, a small deck, stairway, and a walkway to the driveway, which is right along Rockadundy Road. An extended deck to the rear. The proposal is, the reason for this is that they want to bring their laundry from the basement up to this mudroom / laundry room as they're getting older. The closest point impact on the wetlands line is 29 feet from the extension of the rear deck. This will be a 12 by 14-foot concrete addition. There'll be a deck 12 feet long, 6 feet wide, and widen the stairways to 8 feet, and widen the walkway to get to the driveway. The grades are pretty much similar to what exists. As you can see, there's a little change in grade. 104, 103, 102 virtually stays the same. And we proposed a silt fence right along the wetlands edge, the closest point being flag DCC number 6. And that's pretty much it. And any area that's disturbed during the course of construction will be reloamed and seeded. And that's it, Mr. Chairman, for now.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. By the way, commissioners, the plans were submitted by Mark with the packet that included the agendas for this evening. So that's what I've been looking down reading. Okay, just in case you're wondering what I'm looking at. That's okay. I'm following along. I read it beforehand, but I was following along. So share the screen is not required. So no penalty, no points are deducted. Mark, your comments on this? I assume you're the one who reviewed it.
Yes. Yeah, this is it's an addition, a minor addition to the side of the house, some deck work, small additions, some stairways. It's a tight fit. It's in lawn area and existing developed area of the parcel. But it is in fact within buffer zone, and Mr. Potter did indicate at its closest point, it's 29 feet off the wetland line. Staff has no real problem with what is being requested here. However, we are recommending a standard order of conditions as per the plan dated July 5th, 2024, which is the plan that was distributed. That standard order, we'd like to add one additional order, and it's not so much for the O'Neills, but we have taken on the practice of thinking about successors and assigns later on. So this condition is to further protect the wetland, and I know the last time I actually flagged this wetland, so I know it pretty well. I know there was some fencing in the area. What I'd like to recommend that the commission consider is that a split rail fence line shall be constructed and maintained for the life of the existing and proposed structures along the entire side yard and rear yard lawn edge with appropriate signage indicating the environmentally sensitive wetlands final verbiage for the signage shall be approved by the conservation agent prior to installation. So that would be in addition to our standard order, but we are certainly in favor of the project.
Okay, Mark, if I recall correctly, when we've been doing this, we've always said, you know, split rail, but frankly, any kind of physical barrier, so somebody chose a different. kind of split rail.
If we would say, I said a split rail, I don't think that, and if they wanted to put a stockade fence up, that'd be fine, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but typically split rail is the least
Obtrusive.
It's also the least expensive.
I'm lost for words here, help me somebody.
Yeah, I can't-
Least obtrusive fence type, and with some signage so that whomever owns this house in the future is aware that, you know, there is a wetland just on the other side. That would be.
I agree with you. I just wanted to be clear, we
Yeah.
weren't debating the style of fence. I mean, as long as there's a
I
physical.
can take split rail out, but I mean, split rail is fine with me.
Yeah, well, I think that's certainly fine with me as well, but I'm not the owner of the property. So if there's a different kind of fence that makes sense, I think that would be appropriate as well. Anyhow, does any other commissioner have any comment they want to raise with either the applicant's representative, Mr. Potter, or Mr. Garrett? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? Once again, I don't see any. So it is appropriate at this point to entertain a motion to close the public hearing. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. So at this juncture, I would entertain a motion for the issuance of a standard order of conditions according to the plan that was filed, the plan dated July 5, 2024, with an additional condition that we have a split rail fence or something similar with the appropriate signage along the areas Mark had indicated so that there's a clear demarcation as to where the wetlands are for future landowners.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to number 8, which is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2744, NOI 24-31. It's on the notice of intent from Arlene Nunes to construct a 16-foot by 24-foot addition, a 20-foot by 24-foot garage and breezeway with driveway relocation, a 12-foot by 20-foot shed, a 12-foot by 22-foot patio, a 16-foot by 24-foot in-ground pool and patio with safety fence, a boulder wall, and a temporary construction access within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland, and to remove trees deemed unsafe by the applicant within the bordering vegetated wetland. It's appropriate regulations, 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaw. The land is described on map 109, lot 55. It's otherwise known as 28 Meadowwood Drive. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
We have a seconded motion.
Second.
Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. We the Conservation Commission received an email from the applicant's representative requesting a continuance until August 13, 2024, so they can address the staff comments, which had already been forwarded to us as well as to them. So that would be our next public hearing. Entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second,
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
Kyle,
yes.
Liz,
yes,
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. I didn't ask if anyone in the audience, because there's only us and CCTV. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't skipping anything. I took a look at that before I went along. So we're moving now. That concludes our public hearing matters. We're going now to the items for discussion. And the first one that we have something to talk about would be the wetlands regulations, the draft of which Mark had submitted. There were previous comments on it. He submitted it with some of those. Are there any other comments that any commissioner believes needs to be addressed? I'm seeing heads shaking no.
No.
So, Mark,
Good.
I think the latest version looks like what we're gonna,
Okay, so here's my question to the commission. Do we want to submit this to town council and then have a public hearing? Or do we want to have the public hearing and then submit, once we get public comment, which I don't think we're going to get a lot of, then submit it to town council? And we would probably have to wait on this until the bylaw is finalized at the AG's office, so
Yeah.
we have some time before this is scheduled. This is not gonna happen in 2 weeks.
can I ask a question? Is this draft available on our website or someplace where anyone in the public can look at it and comment on it?
It's not yet, it's still an internal discussion piece, that's what I'm asking.
No, I hear you there. So if this goes out to public hearing where we talk about it, ask for comments, that's all we're gonna do when we open this up. We're gonna say, we've now promulgated our draft. We're opening it up for anyone in the public who wants to make a comment on it. We'll consider those comments, but ultimately this has to get approved by town council.
Right.
So I would say we go to the public hearing first, get any additional comments that might be out there, if any, from the public, and then bring that to town council.
I
Otherwise,
concur with the chair.
town council twice.
yeah, I agree.
Okay, so public hearing first, then town council, which is fine, that's the way I feel. I will hold off until we get the finalized version or the final approval from the AG's office. Which
All right.
should be coming within, I would say, the next 2 months. But I want to put this to bed. We're at a point where we can move to the next step when time appropriate.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Very
Mark,
good.
you might as well stay on the soapbox. You've got the enforcement issues.
Oh, yeah, enforcement issues are happening fast and furiously. We have a recurring issue over at 98 McCabe Street. It is a combined zoning and wetland issue. I think I shared with you before that the EPA in Boston contacted us. There's an anonymous neighbor who seems to like to complain every day with no visual evidence to substantiate the complaints. However, we did kind of pull a little off hours kind of surveillance, and we did sort of catch them in part of the act. So we're working on that one. Zoning agent is taking the lead because the use is absolutely incorrect on the site. The wetlands impacts are, if they're occurring, they're very nefarious, and we haven't caught them on that, but we're keeping our eye on that. The next one is 864 and 852 Fisher Road. These are two neighbors who absolutely do not get along. They're trying to they dragged everybody into this right up to DEP in Lakeville. They've got the select board, hemming and hawing on this, town administrator. And really, there are no wetland issues at this point. It's two neighbors who got to get along. It's a drainage issue. This area probably should never have been developed, hindsight being 2020. Because of the very high water table. There have been drainage ditches dug to off-drain water into down gradient wetland areas. They function intermittently. This is about somebody building a wall and allegedly blocking drainage from one site to another. And basically, I told them, I said, this is a civil matter. Get an engineer, figure it out and fix it, because you have bothered everybody in town hall. And nobody can do anything. We are not your consultants. If you have a problem, solve it. And it's purely a civil matter. They don't like each other. I said, you don't have to like each other, solve your problem. I think everybody received a copy of that email that I sent to them in response to the numerous complaints. I did receive several comments from the select board congratulating me on accurately assessing the problem. So we'll see what they do, but this is one that everybody seems to be hearing about. So I wanted to make sure that you heard about it from me, since I'm one of the people that they're complaining to. So anyway, that's where that stands.
No, right, I think you're correct in your assessment, Mark, that all we can deal with as a commission are the wetlands issues. And there may be issues other than wetlands which are implicated here. And I think the advice to get their own professionals, obviously, is good advice.
Well, I could tell you, we did some historic aerial photo research, and predating 1938, and that's not such an obscure date. That is the date that aerial photography started, pre-World War II, where it was used in earnest. These lands have been the subject of agricultural use of various types, differing from year to year to year. So this is not virgin territory. There were probably wetlands out there at one time when nobody cared about wetlands, and they were turned into agricultural fields. They're no longer jurisdictional wetland resources, although they're pretty muddy and there are some puddles out there, but they're not, systemic contiguous wetlands. And there are water problems. People who have basements are going to have water, and we're dealing with right now a period of time where we're in a short-term drought, so to speak, because we haven't had rain in 6 weeks. But prior to that, we were getting 2 inches of rain every 10 minutes. So there's a lot of water still out there, and people are still complaining that conservation should be doing something about their flooding basements, and it's just not the case. We can't try to guide them into ways to, assess their problems more accurately, because we can't, because there are no wetlands in the area. So we're just handling that. I bring it up only because one of the individuals involved has decided to broadcast this problem across eastern Massachusetts, basically. Everybody seems to know about it, and so I just want everybody to be aware that we're on top of it, we're handling it, and hopefully they can bring it to a resolution, because I don't know that we have any leverage to do that.
We don't have jurisdiction.
What?
If there's no wetlands, we don't have any jurisdiction.
Well, we might, but it's so far off. This is a problem that could be resolved easily by neighbors just trying to get along a little bit. And there may be some, trespass violations. We don't know. We're getting into a lot of this murky out of jurisdiction stuff where we know enough to be dangerous, but we try to curtail what we suggest. So anyway, just be advised that we're on top of it. This is not something that we're, letting go, go by. 15 Delano Street, they were supposed to have filed by June 27th. They failed to. We finally did get a notice of intent, and they will be on our next hearing date. So we do have something to move forward on in response to our violation letter. 709, I've added this. This is not on the agenda. This one came up. 709 Russell's Mills Road, which is a combined Board of Health conservation violation. We've been having a very hard time with these people, not so much the property owners, but a relative who is actually the perpetrator of the violation. Brendan Fanoff is the consultant on board, and we're trying to get reins around this to get it under control. We do have a filing in hand. Finally, we got that yesterday morning. That was also supposed to be in on June 27th. We are awaiting filing fees right now before we can process. So just an FYI on that one. And other than that, I'm done.
I have nothing new to add except to say, Megan, how was your first meeting?
Great.
It
It was awesome.
Oh, it gets more exciting than this. No, I just pretty much a lot of them are like this, but they're once in a great while we'll get some heated debates. And those are always interesting to say the least. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, a seconded motion very quickly this time. Okay, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Have a good evening, everyone.
You
Good
too,
night, everyone.
guys.
Evening.
Good night.
Welcome, Megan. See ya.
Thank you so much.